welcome to Strides. My name is Onem. Do you know that over 1,500 kids in Canada from African and Asian descent suffer from a debilitating condition known as sickle cell? In parts of Africa, the numbers are even more staggering. The blood disease accounts for a large number of deaths in Africa from numerous complications. There is need for more information and research, and one organization is at the forefront of this advocacy. The Sickle Cell Disease Association of Canada and in Ontario, the Sickle Cell Awareness Group of Ontario work to disseminate information and create awareness about how the disease can be prevented and how families and individuals can cope with having this disease. Joining us to talk more about it is the National Coordinator for the Sickle Cell Disease Association of Canada. Please join me in welcoming Mrs. Lanre Tunji-Ajayi. Hello, Lanre. Thank you for speaking with us today.
Thank you.
You're welcome to the show.
Yes.
So, what is sickle cell disease?
Sickle cell disease is a debilitating blood disorder. It is genetic, which means you have to be born with it. So normally our blood, the red blood is supposed to be round like a donut. However, for those that have this disease, then you will also find that some of their blood are sickle, like the farm equipment called the sickle blood. And I'm not sure if you can see that. That is sickle blood. Sickle cell disease causes a lot of complications. But again, if people are aware that they carry the trait, they could prevent having children with sickle cell disease. But the problem is, many of those that carry the trait do not know that they carry the trait.
Oh, that's very alarming. So what does SCDAC do? How do you disseminate information to families, and how do you help families to cope with this condition?
So SCDAC, known as the Sickle Cell Awareness Group of Ontario, is one of the two member associations of the national body, which is the Sickle Cell Disease Association of Canada. As a co-founder of SCDAC, I am privy to the work that SCDAC does. SCDAC believes in a lot of awareness and education. As the name dictates, sickle cell awareness. They do awareness at various levels, at the government level, at the hospitals levels, whereby they help to educate the medical and the allied health professionals. They also educate the community and the families and those that live with the disorder. So education is very important, and they also advocate and also support. They give even what we call the emergency grant for families in need. They also go to events to ensure that individuals know about their traits, if they carry the trait, and for them to make informed decisions, especially if they are in the procreating age, whereby they can make informed decision before having babies. Once the baby is born, it's born. So before the baby is born, how can we prevent? So prevention is very important as well.
It's very interesting that you say that, because one of the questions that I wanted to ask was, if, for instance, say two people are in love, I mean, it happens. You don't go on your first date and say, oh, do you have a debilitating condition like sickle cell? So if, what advice do you have for people who have found themselves in a situation where they now want to get married and they find out that one of them is a sickle cell carrier, or one of them has sickle cell disease, for instance, or the condition? What advice do you have for them? What are the options that they have?
So thank you, Hunim. If one of the couple has sickle cell trait and the other is free, doesn't have sickle cell trait or sickle cell disorder, they should, as a matter of fact, go ahead and have children, because there'll be no chance of that child or any of their kids having full-blown sickle cell disorder. Likewise, if one of the partners have full-blown sickle cell and the other does not have the trait or the disease, this is also recommended. However, if both have the traits, which they will not make them sick, and that's why many people that have the traits don't know, because they don't get sick really from being just carriers of the gene. What we recommend is what we call a genetic counseling, whereby they will get counseled and they would know, well, what are the chances of my unborn child if we should proceed in this relationship, having a full-blown sickle cell disorder. And they will also give them the options, and that's one of the things that SCARGO does. They will counsel, and they will let them know that, for instance, with every pregnancy, there's 1 in 4 chances of the baby coming out with sickle cell, where both daddy and mommy have the trait. So when we say 1 in 4, we find that some people sometimes also mistake that to mean, oh, if I have 3 and I stop at number 4, then I'll be okay. That does not mean that. All the kids born could have the full-blown sickle cell. It's like tossing a coin. You don't know which side he will land in. So given that, it's important for every individual going to a relationship, really, maybe not the first date, but at a point before you just start to get very close, I would recommend to discuss genetic issues and get tested. And if both are carriers of the trait, then they can proceed to call associations as Sickle Cell Awareness Group of Ontario or the Sickle Cell Association of Ontario and ask for genetic counseling. And once they do, they'll be able to give them the options that they have. Because even when during pregnancy, the pregnancy can also be tested to know, and then the parents can now make the decision: do we want to still go ahead with the pregnancy, knowing that this pregnancy might come out with a full-blown sickle cell disorder? So these are options, but we always say prevention is better than cure. Always good to know, make informed decisions, and if you know that the child you'll be giving birth to my sickle cell is still okay, it just but it's best for you to start to learn when the child is born. What do I need to know? How do I need to take care of this child? And what are the complications that could arise, and how could I prevent that and give this child the best possible healthy life in as much as it is possible? So again, getting tested, knowing the trait is very, very important.
Okay, and just as a continuation of that same question as well is, what kind of challenges will the children born with sickle cell disease go through, for instance? And especially, I mean, there's a lot of attention on mental health now, for instance, and with sickle cell, we know that kids might have a lot of absent days from school, because then sometimes they have to be hospitalized for a number of days or weeks, depending on how severe the case is. So what kinds of challenges will they go through, for instance, and what support do they have in the school system and from organizations like the Sickle Cell Awareness Group of Ontario to support them?
So that's about 2 or 3 questions. So
yeah, I know.
I'll take them quickly.
Okay.
Again, what kind of complications do we expect when somebody has sickle cell disease? There are so many complications. We've seen stroke in children as young as 2 years of age. So stroke is very, very, a reality. Also, there are other complications such as damage to the vital organs of the body, like the kidney, the liver, the blood vessels, and it could cause blindness, right? And also, sickle cell disorder could also affect the brain and cause something that we call silent stroke. I've seen a young man at the age of 16 who was fully blinded and suffered 3 strokes, all due to sickle cell complications. But what we ask parents to do is to be involved in the parent, in the child's care, know how to manage, the symptoms, and when to go to the hospital, and be involved. And when children are complaining of fever and things like that, don't take them lightly. Also in the school system, you mentioned the school system. Sickle Cell Awareness Group of Ontario, in collaboration with the Sickle Cell Disease Association of Canada, has partnered with the Toronto College District School Board, whereby every teacher in the college system in Toronto now more than ever understands sickle cell disease and what to look for when a child with sickle cell disease is in their class. They're also working with the Seventh-day Adventist school system, and they're moving on to work with the Toronto public school system
children
as
are
well.
the ones that will suffer the bane of most of these things, because then they don't understand how to actually articulate what they are feeling. And you mentioned silent strokes, silent stroke as well. Can you give us other examples of what children or other people that are carriers of this disease may be going through, for instance? All the examples.
Yes, for sure. So as it relates to, what are the complications and symptoms that individuals with sickle cell disorder, be it children or adults, might be having, silent stroke is huge. Yes, that is one of them. And as well, in the school system, we also say to the teachers, for instance, it's very easy to get infection. So we ask them to keep the water fountains very clean, and that way the kids can drink without having to contract infection and stuff like that. It's also important to know that if the children do have pills or medications they have to take, that the school also remind them and make sure that they take these medications, and they always have fluid beside them.
It's really commendable, the work that you're doing to raise awareness when it comes to the relationship you have with the school's board. It's very important that it's very important the work that you're doing, so we must really commend you. We also know that there has been a lot of research so far for sickle cell disease, and something that has come out from this research is actually hydroxyurea. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly.
Hydroxyurea.
So can you tell us a little about that?
Hydroxyurea is actually what I call the miracle drug for sickle cell disorder. It's a little pill that has changed many lives. We have both children and adults who are on this drug, who ordinarily would have to probably go to the hospital on admission, having crisis probably every 2 months or every month, who sometimes have been away from hospital for like 3-4 years. Because the drug actually, what it does is actually improve the amount of the normal red blood in your system. And again, we know that the complications and the problem with sickle cell is because the blood was sickle. And that because it was sickle, it's not letting oxygen pass through. Now, when that sickle blood is reduced and the normal blood is increased, then there's less complications, there's more oxygen in the system, and there's less chance for damage to the vital organs of the body. And so the hydroxyurea, we encourage that every individual is actually screened to ensure that they are compatible with hydroxyurea, and if they are, they should be on hydroxyurea. And that's one of the work that SCDAC has been doing. SCDAC has been educating parents to say, be your own child's advocate. If your child's doctor is not talking about hydroxyurea, you ask them and say, is my child a candidate for hydroxyurea? And if the child is a candidate for hydroxyurea, then it's a great thing. And most of the time, the children or even the adults, 98% of the time, I would say, they are candidates for hydroxyurea. So it's really a great drug that is making a lot of impact. And again, research is still going on, and there are so many different research works that are happening now. Just also to ensure that more doctors and more fellows are interested in sickle cell. SCDAC partnered with the Toronto General Hospital, the UHN, University Health Network, whereby they help to support the fellowship program there. They don't have a lot of money, but whatever few dollars they can raise towards that, they do raise that, and they do provide that, whereby the more doctors are trained into, and then they have more interest, they want to research into sickle cell. As we all know, sickle cell is not that sexy, it's not as cancer that everybody's talking about. So we have to ensure that we do what we can do to get more doctors and more young doctors coming up interested in the field of sickle cell disorder. Otherwise, all our young doctors are going to diabetes or cancer, other areas of manifestation, and very few are looking into sickle cell. So these are the areas that SCDAC has been useful in the community to ensure that we have more fellows having interest in sickle cell disorder.
That's wonderful. And is there a lot of funding for work like this?
There is no funding. There's no government funding. It's all community efforts, all donations, and we have some companies who are supporting. We have some individual businesses who see, that this is so important, and they are helping. Right now, we have a bill with the SCDAC, and in collaboration with the Thalassemia Foundation of Canada, have put in front of in front of them at Queen's Park, and to ensure that there will be a comprehensive care for sickle cell. And part of that, if that bill becomes the law, Bill 665, if it becomes the law, then what will happen is there will be some kind of funding for advocacy groups at SCDAC. But for now, there's no funding. It's all volunteer based. Everybody working at SCDAC, it's all volunteers. Many times, I must commend the president of the association. Her name is Doreen Alexander. Will have to take a lot of time off work just to do this, and so also the vice president, Dr. Nicholas, and many of the team that works with them at the provincial level do take a lot of their work time, to also help ensure, and their family time too, to help ensure that the community is heard. And that must be commended, because everybody here, both at the national as well, it's all volunteer, there's no paid employee.
Okay, so I mean, that's something that's very important. Volunteering is very important, especially for us in Canada here. So please, if you can, give your time to sickle cell volunteering. You could call the office, you could send an email to them at info@sicklecellanemia.ca, or you could visit the website at sicklecellanemia.ca to find out more about sickle cell and what you can do to help. But just to wrap up here, we just want to ask, Lanre, do you have any kind of how do you think we can help? I mean, as Torontonians, as Canadians, what more can we do? I mean, apart from, say, calling your office or finding out online, or coming out ahead that you did the Scotia Bank run that just happened over the weekend. That was very commendable as well. And I'm sure this is the first time that
yes, it is sickle cell
is part of it.
Yes. So yes, thank you, Onim. That's a very good question for the listeners as well. There are so many ways that people can be involved. Like you said, volunteering, getting to be a part of what's going on. The more volunteers, the more work we can do, and the more we can change how things are done. When you see how much cancer has been achieved, and I always say, the policymakers at Queen's Park did not just wake up and say, oh, there's something called cancer, let's work on it. Advocates get up, parents get up, and they say, something must be done. If you as a community rally around SCDAC and the SCDAC and the Thalassemia Foundation, and we keep on pushing the government at Queen's Park, there will be more resources, more funding for research, and there'll be more help for those that have the disorder. These are the ways that people can be a part of what's going on, be part of advocacy, be part of the associations that are working on these disorders. And also with the marathon, yes, we just had the Scotia Bank Waterford Marathon. It's the first time ever that sickle cell will be a part of this event. It's a great event. It's an easy way to raise money, because each one can go to their family members and get sponsored. Even if you can't run, if you can't walk, you can still sponsor those who are doing it. And I'm telling you, some charities would raise millions through what just happened over the last weekend. Sickle Cell Awareness Group of Ontario had a very small team, but it's the first time that sickle cell will be there, so we're very proud of that. Yeah. And so, and people can still contribute and raise money till the end of October. Oh. So even though the marathon happened on Sunday, October 19, people can still contribute and tell people about it and raise money for SCDAC team. And whatever money we raised, Scotia Bank will double it. Oh, so wow. If you're able to raise 10,000, they will eventually give SCDAC 20,000. So it's a great way for the organization to raise funds towards the programs and the emergency grants and education and the awareness programs that they offer, and the community can be a part of it.
Oh, so this is an opportunity for you all out there, So if you have a small group, say, even if you're students or belong to a church or you belong to another community organization and you feel like this is a process that is close to your heart, it's a very good opportunity for you to actually donate towards this course. And what you can do is actually visit, as I said again, sicklecellanemia.ca to be able to get more information about this condition and how you can help. So we want to thank you so much, Lanre, for speaking with us. I know it was a real battle to get you to sit down because we realized how busy you've been, but we want to thank you so much. Thank you for watching today. Please stay tuned for what we have for the rest of the day. Thank you. Bye now.